that Pius died has been devastating personally for me and for anybody who has got to know him. So I start, you will get a copy of the paper right now. If it's not enough, I can always avail you of an electronic copy of it. So I will start. Ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful for your presence here tonight. As a participant observer of human life in society, I can say that life in most of our world today has grown to become a festival of schedules. Everyone is so very busy and overloaded with schedules. This is why one should never take for granted the gift of anyone's presence, both in your life and at your event or occasion for granted. Life is a sequence of moments. Time, our greatest resource. We should never underestimate or overestimate the time we have on our hands to do good, and on departing, leave our footsteps in the sands of time, like Longfellow famously exhorted, and as Professor Pius Adesanmi, in whose memory and honor we are gathered here tonight, has done. We must always be grateful whenever our invitations are honored. We must always show gratitude for every friendship we share, for every help we receive, for every favor done us. We must be grateful for the time we have and use it to the fullest. Tomorrow is not promised us. To that end, I wish to say a very sincere thank you to all of you who have left all your busy schedules to join us this evening. We are actually honored. Thank you. I wish also to say thank you to the organizers, to Mrs. Priscilla Adenuga. Thank you, I'm really grateful. And I thank also Mr. Chijoke Ona and Mr. Chike Omoke for putting this evening together. I thank also Professor Dr. Katharina Hackman of the Institute of Linguistics here at the Goethe University, and Professor Dr. Frank Schultz-Engler of the Institute of English and American Studies here for their help in making this evening a reality. I am grateful to this university, the Johann Wolfgang Goethe University, my alma mater, for availing us of this platform to reflect on the life of my bosom friend. What a better ambience could befittingly host a platform to celebrate the life of a teacher than that of a university. That citadel of teaching, learning, and research, which was the backdrop to Pius's greatest unfolding and career as an African and as a global citizen. A university is not only a citadel of learning. For every rational society, for every humane society, for every society en route civilization and progress, the university is like that metaphorical yeast which permeates lifeless flour, making it rise and expand. And since Professor Pius Adesanmi likes beer and was always getting his bearings right whenever he socializes, one would be amiss to miss the role of yeast in the brewing of those nectars of the gods, which we call wine or beer. The university is over and above being the metaphorical yeast, actually the brewery of human knowledge, serving the whole of society. If the university is hijacked by fraudulence, as we know in many African societies today, or allowed to brew cocktails of intellectual toxicity, or afflicted by pestilences of unreason, it devastates the entire society by producing men and women who are nothing but replicas and vectors of those very diseases harbored and replicated by the university itself. If a society is corrupt, look to its citadels of learning. It is not any better. If a society is retrogressive, its citadels of learning must not be anything better. If a society is dysfunctional, then its citadels of education are breweries of toxicity. If a society is governed by gangsters, then its universities are presided over by moral imbeciles, intellectual cowards, or venerable scoundrels. Professor Pius Adesanmi knew this. This explains his dedication towards revitalizing and retooling the African university system for the 21st century through many of his collaborative training programs with many universities across the continent. For instance, in the University of Ghana, where he holds yearly teaching position, and at the University of Ilorin in Nigeria, respectively. Professor Pius Adesanmi, in spite of everything he was to many people, loves teaching and joyously desired to be known basically as a teacher. He was a teacher not only to his students at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. He converted the social media and the newspaper columns into classrooms from which he taught many Nigerians and Africans. With years of theorizing under his belt, his poems, creative writings, and books all became teaching moments for him and for all of us. He never missed any moment to live out his vocation of being a teacher. In fact, a few days before he died, he was on Facebook excoriating Nigerian students who were misplacing their tenses in English. He was telling them that when you go to cast a vote in an election, cast doesn't have a past tense, it is cast. So, and he told one of his Facebook entries, he said, I have a right to defend myself from this kind of lingual crucifixion. That was Pius for you. I cannot imagine any aspect of African and Nigerian public life and reality that Pius Adesanmi has not theorized about. His book, You Are Not a Country, Africa, which was a collection of his essays, ranging from his quasi-autobiographical journey into self-discovery and self-situation, to discourses on the embezzlement of Africans from history and even scholarship, as his essay in chapter 13 of that book titled Sarah Batman Invisible showed. His first chapter of that book, titled Ota, which is his African name, dealt with the idea of two publics existing in the mind of every post-colonial African. He tried a resolution of that crisis of identity with a story of how his parents retired his African name, Ota, and resurrected Pius, which was name of a pope, because their only son could not be caught carrying an African name into a Catholic seminary in eastern Nigeria manned by their Irish Puritan fathers. In all his works, Pius was a delight to read, prodigiously inventive with words and deeply anchored in history, knowledge, and nuance. With all this in his kitty, Pius graduated into a gadfly, striking terror into the hearts of irresponsible power centers in Nigeria and most of African countries. His biting commentaries and brilliant satires were weekly delights for many. His Facebook updates, his Twitter engagement, his email group contributions, and his Nigerian Tribune newspaper column titled Injury Time with Pius Adesanmi all ensured that irresponsible power and the atrocious psychology of mediocrity afflicting Nigeria and many African countries were not allowed to become culture. He inspired us with his prodigious mind. He edified us with his brilliance and intelligence. He never hid those gifts. He lighted himself as a candle and put it on the lampstand for Nigerians to take a cue that we should never be satisfied with mediocrity. He taught us in virtue. And like St. Francis de Sales once said, that those who taught men in virtue will shine as stars for all eternity. I believe that Pius Adesanmi will shine as a star for all eternity in our firmament. He taught men in virtue. He taught Nigerians and Africans never to be satisfied with mediocrity, but to seek to make themselves better, to never accept that the heights of greatness are impossible. He was what we call a koboko on the axis of irresponsible power. He was a brilliant essayist, a loving father to his daughters, a loving husband to his wife, Muyiwa, a loving, great and doting son to his mother, a great brother to his sisters, my bosom friend, and my mother's son. My thankless job today, I am here just to show gratitude to this friend of mine, not to bury him. For a guy that took the wings of the morning, like he said, on that fateful Sunday, the 10th of March 2019, and was incinerated together with 156 other people in a fiery exit that was final. There may be nothing left to bury. I am here to celebrate the life of my friend and brother, not to deliver a funeral oration. I am neither a Mark Antony out to mourn a Caesar, nor are there similarities between Pius's and Caesar's death. If Pius was murdered by a congress of conspirators, I would have dared to convert this very podium into a Capitol and raised an armada of revulsion to avenge his death. I have told myself many times that Mark Antony's oration would have paled into insignificance compared to the deluge of torrential words which I will have convoked today and let cascade like the Niagara Falls to rouse disgust at his murder. If Pius, my friend and brother, and my mother's son, was killed by physical principalities and powers, those powers will have seen legions of Nigerians rise up in irrepressible vengeance with unparalleled vehemence. But Pius took the wings of the morning and flew into eternity. Pius's life and that of 156 passengers was eclipsed at high noon on the 10th of March 2019 as the Ethiopian airline Boeing 737 MAX 8, operating a scheduled international passenger flight as Flight 302 from Addis Ababa International Airport in Ethiopia to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, Kenya, crashed near the town of Bishoftu 6 minutes after takeoff, killing all 157 people on board. Pius, flying close to 13 hours from Ottawa to Addis Ababa, was supposed to have a lunch appointment with a common friend of ours, Professor Tadi Aina, that day in Nairobi, before heading to his ECOSOC meeting. He never made that lunch. Pius Adesanmi was until his death a professor of literature and director of the Institute for African Studies at the Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. A perch and platform he deployed in letting loose his passion for Africa. A service, in portionment of which he was on his way to Nairobi on that fateful day that he lost his life. His life, as his writing, public and personal engagements testify, was a shot taken at immortality. Pius was a man in a hurry. He may have known that longevity was not promised him. He used every second he had to follow his passion, which was Africa. He did it faithfully and to the best of his ability, marshalling all the talents and opportunities offered him, and deploying them in service to his fellow men and his brothers and sisters. He used every opportunity to make us never lose sight of what is important. Even in the midst of tears, Pius will always want us never to lose sight of the goal, but to keep on at it, in spite of the pain. For him, we can only honor the dead by being more insistent in our advocacy for what is right, true, and beautiful. In 2009, I lost my elder brother, Christopher Ogbunweze, in a car accident in Nigeria. It was such a heavy blow to me and to my family. Christopher was a rock for my family. Those networks of dysfunction and potholes pretending to be roads in Nigeria claimed him. He was 44 years of age when he died, attesting to many research findings that life expectancy in Nigeria hovers around 40 years of age. Every philosophy I knew became powerless to console me or minimize my pain. I couldn't analyze the pain or comprehend the unfairness of it all. I could, at that moment, well understand Herbert Grönemeyer in that moment, who sang a beautiful dirge to his departed wife, titled The Vague, which has as its heartrending refrain, Das Leben ist nicht fair. Life is not fair. I was slipping in and out of depression anger, helplessness. Friends all try to console me. I am normally a kind of a loner when it comes to painful events or tragedies. I need to take flight into the deep recesses of my mind to try to walk through the pain. In those dark weeks, I got a lot of condolence messages and support from a lot of friends all over the world. I got one mail which shows the character of the man I came to know, love, cherish, and admire as my friend and brother. It reads, "Franklin, I just read the news of the tragic loss of your brother. Condolences. It is tragic that you, an important public voice, should lose a dear one to the very circumstances we condemn every day about that sorry country of ours. Bad roads and attendance, needless accidents. The only way you can honor the dead is to make your voice more strident. Courage, Pius." That was Pius Adesanmi writing me from his perch in Canada in 2009 at the death of my other brother, reminding me never to bow to hopelessness, but to be strident in my engagement with Nigeria and her dysfunctionalities, as a way to honor the memory of my brother. This mail summarizes the attitude of Professor Adesanmi. He acknowledges our weakness and pain, but is always on hand at the personal level to help us see beyond the dark clouds. That is the path I am willing to take today after my loss of Pius. This mail alone may not express the depth of the bonds which Pius and I shared, but a lot of our common friends are still in doubt whether I could be able to pull this off today. I know the violence being done to my heart by the fact of my standing here today to deliver a lecture, doubling as a funeral oration and farewell alert. I had an occasion to fear for Professor Adesanmi's life. I was frightened to my marrows when I could not hear from him. I used all the channels that we used to communicate to no avail. I became alarmed. And then it happened. On Friday, 2nd November 2018, at 4:54 p.m., I got a WhatsApp text. It reads thus: "My mama's son, I am back from the dead, oh." That's the way we speak in Nigeria. That was Pius Adesanmi writing me after months of being incommunicado, consequent on a car accident he had in Nigeria, which nearly took his life. Unable to reach him, I reached help, asking anyone who could be asked where they were hiding him. I thought he was dead, but no one had the courage to tell me. Normally, when we want to embarrass each other in our playful manner, we shout on Facebook. I went on Facebook then to shout out my frustrations. We survive the country that we give our all to, but which in turn eviscerates all that we have had cause to cherish. I was happy, but my happiness lasted only 4 months, and Pius died. Many have asked me, how, when, and where did you meet Professor Pius Adesanmi? This is a legitimate question against the backdrop of the fact that every story starts with a principio, that is, and in the beginning. It was the same in the book of Genesis. They say in the beginning God could make the heavens and the earth. It was the same when the author of the Gospel of St. John wanted to establish Jesus as the new beginning. He started with, in the beginning was the Word. Our children's storybooks start with once upon a time, and so on. Well, I have railed and written about dysfunctional infrastructure in Nigeria. I have criticized primitive thievery in governance in Nigeria and many African countries. I have criticized the adoption of mediocrity and the civic apathy of majority of Nigerians. I have written and talked a lot about the poverty of ideas dominating our decision-making bodies. I have suggested many ways forward. I have railed about those primitive fault lines like tribalism, which was actively cultivated by the ruling class in Nigeria, in subservience to their visionless and primitive acquisitive tendencies. I have debated ferociously about dysfunctional leadership and governance in Nigeria on so many listservs and on so many forums, making many friends, attracting many admirers, and also many indefatigable enemies in the process. All these fights for Nigeria were informed by a deep love for my country and a deep pain at the wastage of potentials and resources which the country became at the hands of a range of blind, deaf, and murderously tyrannical civilian rogues in collaboration with a consortium of military brigands and their foreign collaborators. It was in the course of these fights for the soul of Nigeria that I met Dr. Pius Adesanmi in 2003. In many of those Nigerian listservs that became the watering hole for Nigerian intellectuals scattered all over the world in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He was present in every forum I was in. We were following each other like hunchbacks. We wrote together for NigerianVillageSquare.com. We wrote together for NigerianWorld.com for Sahara Reporters. We were together at the U Texas Google group organized by Professor Tony Falola of the University of Texas. We were together in Niger Politics, which was a Yahoo group organized by Juan Mato from the US, to name but a few. Those were the young days of the internet. We became internet warriors in our spare time. The old Napoleonic lesson that the pen was mightier than the sword was our operating mantra. We had the keyboard. We used it to devastating effect. Many top Nigerian politicians got to taste our biting critiques and analysis of issues. They had their minions and mandarins in those groups too. But the patriotic and kindred spirits crystallized and formed lasting bonds of friendship, which originated within those listservs and grew stronger outside it. In 2003, when we met, Pius was a young Ph.D. holder who finished his Ph.D. in French studies a year earlier, in 2002, at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. I was a young doctoral student starting my Ph.D. in social and economic ethics under Professor Johannes Hoffman on Ogbunweze here at the Goethe University. The internet gave us a forum in the form of chat rooms and message boards. Ideas blossomed as they were exchanged for free. We realized that Nigeria had many brilliant minds. We wondered where these guys were and Nigeria was going to hell. We lived online and fought for the Nigeria of our dreams. Many of our exchanges became opinion pieces. Many of them led to bitter battles of tribal provenance, which has been the lens through which many discussion about Nigeria is carried out, even till this moment. Many of them reached the ears of power in Nigeria. Many of us became haunted because of our views. Many gained power through the patronage and retailing of official narratives, financed by those sodomizing Nigeria. Some of our battles spilled into concrete existence and became court cases across American and Nigerian jurisdictions. We lived for our ideas. We wanted Nigeria to live up to its potentials and promise. We churned out ideas, myriads of them. We were never afraid to state our views and visions. Theories took flight in those forums. We were young, we were insistent, we wrote and read, and we were heard. It was in the course of that Pius and I took notice of each other. He confessed to being in love with my peculiar way of stating my side of the story. I fell in love with his intellectual depth, his wit, his satirical manner of delivering serious issues. I must confess that I was intimidated by his deep knowledge of culture. His knowledge of history and philosophy was as well breathtaking. His mind could process infinite amounts of information at a speed I have only seen in a few people. It was a meeting of minds. It was a meeting of brothers from across time. He was dope. He was a young doctor armed with an opinion and the intelligence and wit to deliver it. I was a young PhD candidate armed with an opinion and with enough braggadocio to deliver it. We were frolicking in listservs patronized by professors of many things. We were not intimidated, to say the least. As the years went by, I couldn't resist reading him. Immediately he penned anything. He later told me that he couldn't resist reading me whenever I wrote. He was marveled at the way I weave history and philosophy as backdrops to whatever I wanted to say then. We were drawn to each other like twins separated at birth, but seeing each other in the other person. We got talking and found out that apart from Pius coming from that area of Nigeria that people call Yoruba people, and me coming from that area of Nigeria that people call the Igbos, that we shared a similar vision for Nigeria, we have a similar vision for reality, intellectual engagements, and so many other things. I I would drop an article and Pius would call and chastise me for stealing the ideas that he has in his mind. "Old boy, how come you use the words I could have used today now?" And sometimes when he's theorizing, I would call and ask him, "Old boy, how come you thief my words and my ideas in my mind?" I see him speaking my language, and he felt the same way on many occasions about my words. We never knew we were brothers from different mothers, but that was what we became. Our relationship changed upon the realization, and we became brothers. When we met, it was like we have known each other for a long time. We have been friends since 2003, but we met for the first time in 2010. And I was in Canada, I visited him, and it was just like we came home to each other. Once, in the course of our online engagement, I got into a very intense disagreement with a revered Nigerian professor of an American university, which turned ugly and resulted in 2 opinion pieces published across many Nigerian websites then. One was from me denouncing this professor's take on Chinua Achebe's refusal of the Nigerian Merit Award that the Obasanjo government awarded him. The professor, who was very popular, wrote denouncing me for denouncing his take. It was passionate, it was intense. No turfs were given and none was taken. I was firing on all cylinders like a young man that I was. The professor was too. It became the subject of discussion in Niger Politics Forum. The professor was from Pius's part of the country, and as is usual, people took sides based on where their tribal allegiances laid, but not Pius. Pius wrote me, asking me not to mind the take of the professor, who was obviously wrong but couldn't admit it. He stood on the truth of my position and defended it, and reminded those who wanted to retail that as an ethnic war, that it was not one, but a battle between 2 positions and visions of morality. I argued that Achebe was right in rejecting Obasanjo's offer of a National Merit Award while financing the conversion of Achebe's home state into what Achebe himself described as a bankrupt and lawless fiefdom. The other party argued that Achebe had no right to protest. Pius stood for his principles on that occasion. He taught me that truth has no tribe. Our friendship took off from there. We graduated into brothers, like I said earlier, as time went on. We started calling each other my twin, my mother's son, or my mama pikin. Our friendship subsisted till that very cold evening on Sunday the 10th of March 2019, when I placed a call to Nairobi and Professor Tade Aina confirmed to me that Pius was on that plane. I never in my entire existence and experience imagined that I would be deemed worthy of such a morbid honor of saying farewell to a bosom friend of mine, who generously shared his life, his gifts, and his plans and projects with me and with many other people across our world. I can now understand the doubts gnawing away at the heart of that ancient author of the 121st Psalm when he cried, "I look up to the mountain from where shall my help come." I have helplessly tried to understand why Pius must die at this time. I have not gotten an answer to that. I have asked myself severally, where shall I derive the courage to speak about Pius in the past tense? Is it from our deep love for each other? Is it from the brotherhood, mutual respect, and common admiration of each other, which transcended tribe, tongue, and distance? Is it from the concrete plans we had of being at the vanguard of grooming a new crop of political leaders for Nigeria? Is it the mutual respect of our various talents? Is it from the great times and experiences we shared? Is it the anthropologies of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who wouldn't have any of Shakespeare's pessimism? Longfellow's take was a rejection of that Shakespearean cynicism. I would appropriate Longfellow as against Shakespeare in asking everyone to tell me not in mournful numbers that life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Though Pius Adesanmi is dead, his life and the fact that he, in this very hall, in this very moment today, is transcending his death as he hitches a ride in our memories, proves Longfellow right. The soul is dead that slumbers. Pius Adesanmi did not slumber, and we shouldn't, or else we will be dead. And that is what death is, namely to be lost to memory, to be plunged into eternal forgetfulness. The dead is he who is forgotten. I am doing this also because Longfellow reminds me that life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow finds us farther than today. I am doing this because Longfellow intimates us that art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still, like muffled drums, are beating funeral marches to the grave. I am doing this because I want to forever have Longfellow's reminder before me, to the effect that in the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, that I should not be like dumb driven cattle, but be a hero in the strife. Pius Adesanmi lived this, as his life attests. In the world's broad field of battle, in that bivouac of life, he was not like dumb driven cattle. He gave the powerfully corrupt a good lashing for their hypocrisy. He gorged their pretenses at the altars of probity. He proclaimed the justness of being fair and just. His lips he did not seal. He became a hero, not only in the strife, but in the lives and memories of many Nigerians and Africans. That was his shot at immortality, and he took it. Pius Adesanmi is dead, but he lives. He lives in his works. He lives in his achievements. He lives in the fond memories of his friends and admirers. I am doing this also to remind myself to trust no future, however pleasant. To let the dead past bury its dead. To act in the living present, heart within and God overhead. I am doing this because Professor Pius Adesanmi's life and lives of great men and all remind us we can make our lives sublime and departing leave behind footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, saying, shall take heart. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing. Learn to labor and to wait. I will get to my conclusion, where I try to see Pius as a gadfly that will, a social wilderness. In the views of the great British philosopher and mathematician Alfred North Whitehead, the safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of footnotes to Plato. That is to say that all Western philosophy is footnote to Plato. That was North's contention in his great work titled Process and Reality. Aristotelian supremacists, I know, will not like that very much, I suppose. Not minding the fact that Aristotle was Plato's student. In spite of the controversies which his observation generated and still generates, I wouldn't mind deferring to Whitehead on this evening for two reasons. The reasons are prominence and place. The halls of the Johann Wolfgang Goethe University in Frankfurt. This great citadel that has offered some serious contributions to contemporary philosophy and social theory through its popular Frankfurt School, made up of great thinkers like Horkheimer, Adorno, and Jürgen Habermas. Critical theory, which is fruit of their intellection, is still a tool being deployed across many disciplines today. Plato is reputed to be the founder of the first institution of higher learning in the Western world, the academy. So, being in a university tonight, I will naturally defer to the guy reputed to be the founder of the idea which metamorphosed into what we know as universities today. The idea of a thinker as a gadfly was first broached in written form by Plato. This great Athenian philosopher, in his apology for the life of Socrates, reminded us for all times and across all climes that every society needs a gadfly to stamp the steed of state into acknowledging its proper duties and obligations. According to the words put into his mouth by Plato, Socrates believed that he had been sent by the gods to act as a gadfly to the Athenian state. He saw the state as a great and noble steed, which had to be reminded of its proper duties. Socrates believed he did this by stinging the steed of state. All they are loved and they are hated according to the stake of those liking or hating them at each point in their careers. In so many embraces, they are branded or even murdered. Some of them, like Socrates of Athens, will be condemned to hemlock as their societies battle to commit crimes against philosophy. Some of them, like John the Baptizer of Galilee, will have his head handed on a platter to the daughter of an adulteress, on the orders of the moral imbecility of psychopathological power represented by Herod, the Tetrarch of Galilee. Some of them will be crucified in between thieves, like Jesus the Nazarene was. But in Nigeria under Buhari, anyone who dared to criticize President Buhari and his incompetence was labeled a whaler by his paladins and notorious hatchetmen. Pius Adesanmi was also called a whaler by some sections of the Buhari apparatchik. That was why I chose the operative word whaled. To own it for all of us that are critical of incompetence, nepotism, and petty atrocity-spangled psychology of many an African henchman, a war which Pius Adesanmi fought joyfully for all of us. Whether they are whalers or voices crying in the wilderness, gadflies never tire of reminding their societies that their asses stink. The country has become under their watch. Any observer or student of the Nigerian situation, just like Pius, would see that Nigeria under our politicians became the earthly address that Satan rents to provide temporary accommodation for the occupants of hell whenever he needs to service the furnaces of hell. He wrote about the Nigerian pretense thus, and I quote, "The sum total of national life is nothing but an endless footsie playing between those in government and those outside, hoping to cajole them to be let in, or scheming to shut them out and take their place, either by election or by appointment. A Nigerian has no greater definition of success and life fulfillment than a political office, no matter how paltry and insignificant." That was his Facebook update, which he titled Restructuring. For Pius, that tragic sociology destroyed Nigeria. He urged every Nigerian, even those wanting to leave Nigeria for Biafra or for Oduduwa or Irish republics, respectively, to restructure their psychology first before they leave, since that tragic sociology destroyed the Nigeria they are fleeing and they are going with it. That was vintage Pius. Pius Adesanmi realized that power, according to Noam Chomsky, is a very violent institution, and that, like John Peel just said, that one of the noblest human struggles is against power and its grip on historical memory. Over and above keeping the politicians on their moral toes, he was aware and hated the soft bigotry of low expectations, which has been the civic refuge of many of our citizens. He was always flogging our mediocre expectations and rejecting it whenever it showed its head. He wrote his heart out in his article titled The Parable of the Showerhead. Pius spared no opportunity to lament and agonize over the intellectual laziness and mental indolence of the Nigerian political class. Pius criticized the pretentious arrogance of our men of power, treating Nigerians like chattel. He criticized the destruction of our educational system, which was deliberately destroyed by the ruling class so that they would always have a mass of ignorant hangers-on to lord it over, while sending their children to the best schools abroad, so that when they come back, they can take over from where their parents stopped. Pius, he was a trader in laughter, and nuance too. He was a master of satire. He deployed his wit to dissect our predicament in ways that are superlatively didactic, but impregnated with comedy. His book, Nigeria the Carry Last, was a collection of satirical essays dissecting Nigeria and Africa. To read his books is to witness a profound intelligence working its way through reality in time. To know Pius is to know ebullience, laughter, and joy. That was the Pius Adesanmi that was lost to Nigeria and to Africa in that plane crash. He wanted an Africa that is not toilet paper for the rest of the world. He wanted an Africa that will forever be the pride of every African. His interventions on and in Africa are testaments to that. Pius was on his way to the meeting of ECOSOC in Nairobi, Kenya, when he died. Professor Pius Adesanmi was a scholar of first eminence. He is a great man, possessed of a very fine and cultivated intelligence. He has a will of steel. He brings his ample wit, charisma, and prodigious mind to bear on any task he set for himself. He is all human. He hated every citadel of oppression with a passion. He is at home in his cultural skin as a Yoruba man and deploys that as a pedestal of meeting the world and his fellow human beings. He hated supremacist ideologies with a passion. That is the basis upon which Pius will fight you to a standstill with all the weapons in his intellectual arsenal, no matter how much he respects no matter how much respect he nurses for your person. Pius Adesanmi stood for the truth of his convictions. He sought knowledge. He hated mediocrity and fought against it. What do you stand for? Pius stood for something. That is the man we are celebrating today. He will sorely be missed by his wife and daughters, his mother and sisters, his relatives and friends, and by all of us whose lives he touched with his intelligence, total dedication to seeing Nigeria work. My brother Pius, thank you for the friendship and brotherhood we shared. That plane pulverized your body, creating a crater. The crater you were left by taking the wings of that morning can never be filled. Your death has robbed us of one of our finest. Good night, my brother. Good night. Thank you.
I'd like to open the floor for personal tributes. So we'll start with Mrs. Pius Adesanmi, who will give a very short tribute to a man she once knew. And after this, if anyone here wants to say something, a few minutes, 1 minute or two, the floor will be open. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your presence. Thank you very much. I was able to write this after exactly 2 weeks after Professor Adesanmi's death. I already posted this on a website created for his tribute, which is professorpiusadesanmi.com. So I will just read it this evening. I titled the tribute "Gone Too Soon." And I started by saying, I need to do this because I'm afraid if I don't do this, then my heart will remain heavy for as long as your memory lasts. Professor Pius Adesanmi, I met you in 2017 during a 3-week program at Kwara State University, Abiola Irele School of Theory and Criticism. I remember telling you about the scholarship I just got to study in Germany. You immediately started searching frantically for how to connect me to somebody in Germany. I remember you were searching through your phone just so you could put me in touch with at least someone who could help me to settle when I get here. You linked me with Dr. Onyemaechi of Bremen University. Egbon, that was your name because immediately I told you that I am from Eruku, my town in Nigeria. You started speaking Yaba to me. Egbon, you advised me to apply for the German visa along with my family. I expressed my fears, I said I got the scholarship and not my family. You insisted I applied with the whole of my family. Your reason was that if I apply alone, it would be difficult to invite my family to join me in future. I started the application process. I searched for accommodation in Germany on the internet. There seemed to be no hope. There seemed to be no help. I called to tell you about it, and it was easier to apply for the visa alone. Your response was, Aburo, all of you should go. If you apply alone, it will take a long time for you to get your family to join you. I took the bold step. I applied without a clue of accommodation for my family, without any hope of survival in a foreign country, but your voice kept on ringing in my head. Don't apply to go alone. Apply with your family. Egbon, thank you for being a natural being. Thank you for your selflessness. Thank you for just being the Egbon that I call you. I am grateful for that advice. I am here with my family, but I have seen colleagues trying to bring their families with so much pain. But you did not wait for the response from Professor Nala, the Vice Chancellor of Kwara State University. You insisted I inform the VC about the empty salary alerts that I get every month. I tried to explain to you that probably I get the empty alert because my name is still on the payroll of the university. You said I should never assume. You said I should mail the VC and get back to you. Egbon, I did as you instructed, and I'm waiting for its response to get back to you. Death is bitter. Alabama, the songwriter, wrote, "Oh, I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours to show us how to live, to teach us how to give, to guide us with the light of love. Death is surely a debt we must pay. Someday."
It is time for us to leave the legacy which Pius have left behind. Let us do our best to also leave our own name behind while we live, so that the very day we leave this earth, people will still say, there was someone called this person, that as we live, we're not going to fade away with our mortal bodies, but while our mortal bodies fade away, our name, what people take the personality, what makes us persons, will live on. Thank you.
Sadly, Professor Adesanmi will not be here to witness the spring of a new, integrity-driven, hard work-driven young Africans that made a decision to be better, thanks to his exemplary life. Like I said earlier, I did not know him personally, yet I'm mortified by his passing. Consequently, I will never truly appreciate the extent of pain that his family and close friends have had to deal with. To his family, to his mother's son, Onyemaechi, and his dear friends, I can only wish you the strength to get through this tragedy intact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chukuma. Our short meeting really affected my life in a very positive and a very wonderful way. And I have written a short tribute to him. It's in form of a play. I would like to give a little context before starting. In Nigeria, where I grew up, as kids, we go out to play in the evening. And towards dusk, your parents start calling you to come back home. So this is the little context of this short tribute. So the two characters in this play are a mother and a son. The mother is Mother Africa, and the son is Pius. So I start. Pius! Pius say, "Yes, Mama, I'm here. It is time to come in, my son. Come back home. But Mama, all my friends and mates are still out here, and there is still ample time. Every individual on this earth operates on a personal time, my dear son. Your own time is, when your own time is due, it is due. Now, will you come back to your mother? Okay, Mama, if you insist. Yes, I do insist. Go and bring the goats back from the field. I have already done that, Mama, and I also fetched the leaves that they will eat tomorrow. Okay. Rush to the stream and fetch some water then. I fetched some water before I left the house. The clay pot in the backyard is now filled to the brim. That is good, my son. Now, I want you to go and help your younger relatives with their homework. That too has been done. Mama, I taught them all they need to know and even set a model for them to follow. Oh, my lovely son, you always make me proud. You have put a smile on my face and on thousands of faces alike. You have done a great job for yourself and for the people around you. You have been loving to everyone and competent in bringing people together for exploits. Tonight, I will cook your favorite dish. I will sing you a beautiful song. Go and wash your hands and feet. Tonight, you will sleep long and well. Farewell, Professor Pius Adesanmi.
So we want to thank those that made this successful. Priscilla that brought the idea. She's a Ph.D. student in linguistics here. And Chike and I that organized it. We want to thank Professor Shuse Ingler, my supervisor and godfather here, that's helped us to secure this room and also helped us in all the arrangements here. We also thank supervisor for Professor Hartman that is not here. And we also thank the students from GIC, the graduate students that helped us to prepare things and make arrangements for the refreshments, the friends of the Celia that helped to make this day possible. We thank our friends that came all the way from UK, from Bremen, and all across Germany just to make today successful. Right now, this is the end of the program, and we can just step back for the little bit refreshments while we play the TED Talk for Adesanmi. So it's not part of the program, but we want to live here with his own voice echoing on the background. Thank you very much for coming.
Just so you know how important this thing is, and I'll put it together for you in a parable. We're in a church. I'll put it together for you in a parable because we're in a church. How important it is for us to develop a culture of contempt, a national culture of contempt and hatred for certain things that we need to fundamentally reject about this country instead of benefiting, because the dysfunction and the chaos and the what I was calling the culture of irresponsibility that made me feel so uncomfortable in my first years in Canada, because I had grown, they have come to define us because those things work. They work for the Nigerian. It works, you know, and if it's not working for you, it works for the 1%, and then the 99% live in anticipation of the day they are going to make it, so that the same dysfunction and chaos and mediocrity will work to their advantage. We are not hating it yet. And let me show you why it is a psychological problem. And how are we doing for time? Oh, I started back. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Yeah, let me show you how it's become, how much of a psychological problem it is. Our inability to conceptualize and positively harness hatred. Because don't get me wrong, the word hate has so much negative, connotation that sometimes we don't even know that it could